Welcome to Access, thanks to Crypto.com. Matthew Lloyd and Damian Barrett with you. We have a new premiership favourite. There are lots of injuries to lots of big-name players, and the biggest club in the game, Matthew Lloyd, has major concerns.
They do. We're going to talk about Collingwood shortly, and I also can't wait to see how the rest of the season plays out. There's two former teammates in Grundy and Gawn duking it out for that All-Australian #1 ruck spot, and I'm loving what I'm seeing.
Let's start with the injuries, because premierships are going to be decided with the lack of availability for these players, and this is the source of our Crypto.com bold call.
Yes, my Crypto.com bold call, Damo, is that these three clubs cannot win the premiership now with three major injuries. So we look at the first one is Hayden Young, and we saw how critical he is, and I think with him out, they lost a little bit yesterday. Carlton beat them up around the clearances, and Damon, you wouldn't think he'd be back until the first final with a groin injury.
I would doubt that. I mean, you can see the treatment being applied there to the groin. The coach, Justin Longmuir, admitted last night that it was a groin issue that was the reason for him being subbed out. But coming on the back of already, Lloydo, missing a sustained period of time, and not for the first time this year, with a hamstring complaint that required a lot of negotiation and rehab, it's a major concern given how important he is. I've been arguing Lloydo for 2 years. He is their most important player, and here we are again on the eve of a final series, and he's not available.
I know whenever I missed a sustained period of time, the first game back was always the easiest because you're running on adrenaline. That next week you feel like you've been hit by a truck, and so he played a quarter, then he played one full game, so he would have been that sore, fatigued, and then it's no surprise that happened to him over the weekend.
The more, I suppose, factual issue out of these injuries we're talking about, Lloyd, is Will Day, who is now officially out for the year yet again. Now, the Hawks couldn't get past the semi-final last year with him. This year, it's a foot injury, which was a problem for him until he came back 2 weeks ago and then copped a knock on it in this game against Adelaide, subbed out, and the diagnosis was drastic for them the post-match.
Yeah, why they can't win it now is obviously they're hanging on to make the eight, firstly, but their midfield isn't going that well. He's their best player. He's their most important player. I don't think John Newcombe is travelling very well at the moment. Connor Nash, Warple, these types. It's not as if they're flying in the midfield as it is, and now they lose him for the rest of the year.
And that being the bone bruise issue, it's a navicular issue now, and the fact that he hadn't played since the fourth game of the season until 2 weeks ago against Carlton in round 20, Lloydo, to not even get 2 games out of him from that rehab period. The club itself will need to review what happened. Now, I'm not questioning that he was right to go, but clearly the runway got shortened, and they brought him back in round 20, couldn't get through 2 weeks. I know there's a fresh knock on this, but it is the same foot.
Yeah, I just pray and hope that it's not something that is a career challenge for him. We saw James Hird back when I was playing, where it took him years and years to get over it. And we've seen some other players, I think
it can end careers.
Yeah, can end careers. So we saw Matty Egan and these types. So fingers crossed he'll be okay.
Yep. And then we'll go to Jesse Hogan, who's the reigning Coleman medalist, Lloydo, and has been playing through foot problems himself. But after the debacle of the Giants against the Western Bulldogs in round 21, he finished the game on the bench. He's playing with modified boots to a degree. He's just not having the impact, Lloydo, and the numbers that are attached to his game on the round 21 performance are nothing like what they need him to do. This too is a major concern.
Yeah, just watching him sit on the bench over the weekend, you saw the frustration, you could see the worry in his face, and the pressure it then puts onto Aaron Cadman. If he's not there, it's just too much. So again, he is the key to the Giants making a play this year.
So those three players, unless they're at or near their best, and Day is already ruled out, they're not winning the
because they're already ranked 5 to 8 anyway, those sides. So without their 3 key players, you rule them out.
Yep. I love what the Dockers have done, despite this issue with Hayden Young, Lloydo. 10 wins now from their past 11 matches. They were down against Carlton by 4 and 5 goals regularly. Even halfway through the last quarter, they were down. But their second half performance, I felt, was quite meritorious, given that this old Fremantle team would have potentially lost that game yesterday. We know what happened to them last year at this stage of the season. Lost their last 4 games to miss finals. They're finding a way this year. They're grinding out games.
Yeah, I agree with that. The glass half empty side of me would say that they were hunted by Carlton in a way where they didn't handle the pressure very well. They were beaten up at centre bounce, clearance, and then, out-hunted by Carlton. So well done to turn it around. 9 goals out of Amos, Tracy and also Voss, who had a really good second half. Started really slow, that man Murphy Reid. Didn't have his biggest game, but still just keeps finding a way. Dudley at ground level was good as well.
That man was great, Jackson, regularly. Yeah,
absolutely. So, they grounded out a lot. As you said, the pressure could have mounted on them. We saw a bit of stress from Justin Longmuir in the box, but they're a confident side right now.
Their forwards got going late. I mean, we just saw Amos pass to Tracy, and Diddley stepped up. Voss kicked goals in the last quarter, gave another one away here. They got it right. Their system held up.
Yeah, I think, Damo, they'll let down by their midfield. So if their midfield's getting smashed, you don't get much supply. But once their midfield got back on top, it'll certainly turn for those three forwards.
Of slight concern is the fact that 4 of their past 5 wins in this stretch they're now on, they've been down by more than a goal that three-quarter time. They've found a way in 4 of those 5, but it's a slight concern though, isn't it?
Yeah, you don't want to be in that position. They got away with it against Collingwood, so that's a big tick at the MCG. But they play the Western Bulldogs at Marvel in the last game, which will loom as a key game.
Lordo, the big winner out of round 21 was the Adelaide Crows for what they did against Hawthorn. Officially finished the round on top of the ladder, and I think most pleasingly they had to find a way that they hadn't been required to do so this year, and that is to come from behind by more than 5 goals against a quality opponent. Yeah,
they got beaten around the midfield as well. I thought Lloyd started well against Riley O'Brien, and the midfield of Hawthorn was well on top, but to turn it around shows a sign of maturity by them as well. I think they've got more than the Fremantle Dogs, a lot more, and they're on top after 21 rounds for a reason. Only a good side can do that, Damo.
We're showing the last quarter highlights here and have a look at some of them. I mean, Isaac Rankin lit it up in the last quarter. That goal he just kicked and this creation of another goal here, the way he played. We'll see Tex Walker step in soon, one of the 3 key forwards that they've got. And the long bomb goals from big moments at big stages of this game. He had a super last quarter, but it was the captain, wasn't it, Lordo, in the second quarter, Jordan Dawson, who I feel had done enough already and maybe on the back of that second quarter alone and for the rest of the game has now got status as All-Australian captain.
Yeah, he's in the best 5 or 6 players in the game, Jordan Dawson. Rankin did a really good job. He had Blake Hardwick all over him and he found a way to contribute 3 goals. Their backline is sensational. They hold up so well. We all talk about what Worrell's doing. I thought Wayne Miller had the best game I've seen him play. And then you got Berry and Saligo, who are a brutal, tough midfielder. So, yeah, everything's there for them. Hopefully they can get Michael Annie back because they don't lack for too much.
The screen to your left is called Lordo's screen. You're desperate to get over it to show us what the Brisbane Lions did against Collingwood on Saturday night.
Well, speed kills. It used to be a logo for the Bombers back in the early 90s when they won the 93 premiership. That was what they spoke about. And speed killed Collingwood. Brisbane Lions were too quick. So we look at some of the goals. They were just hanging on, Collingwood, I thought, after half-time. It was 7 goals to 3 after half-time. And you see some of this. It was just too much for Collingwood. So Collingwood are a wonderful pressure side. This is a wonderful kick by Darcy Gardner.
Almost the kick of the season.
Yeah, and we spoke to Josh Dunkley yesterday. He said, you must go at Collingwood. If you don't go at them, their defensive press and their pressure is too good. Brisbane take them on. That's what they did to Sydney in the grand final. This is exactly what happened.
As you were highlighting what they're doing here, and it's explosively spectacular at times, but there's a plan around it all, isn't there, Lordo?
Yeah, they're pretty good in tight, and then they get it on the outside, and they know what Darcy Moore's doing behind the ball, who we're about to talk to, and Maynard and these guys. They're pretty aggressive, so if you can get it out the back and onto them. But I look at the youth of what they've got, Damon. They've got Rayner, Bailey, Fletcher, Ashcroft ×2, Wilmot. So there's so much speed on that ball that, as I said, it was too much for the Pies.
And then you've got a guy who's only 70 days into his 20th year of life in Logan Morris, kicking 6 goals against the super team that is Collingwood, 40 for the year and 2 bags of 5 on other occasions this year.
Yeah, and he challenged this Collingwood defence, which does worry me. The Lions' marks and the defensive concerns for Collingwood. So here it is. Charlie Dean, I know I don't like talking about a young defender like this, but he's just not there and he's just not ready.
Well, not there as the second tool in this team at the moment. Maybe the third, but not the second.
That's right. So Jeremy Howe comes back this week, so we'll see how they measure up in that regard. I thought Maynard did a really good job, but the rest of them probably got found out a little bit. So Darcy Moore is someone that Perryman's even back there. Didn't have a great night either. So, yeah, they do have defensive woes. And the reliance on Nick Dacos again is become way too much.
You flagged this problem down back, I think, some weeks ago before it became obvious in them losing 3 of their past 4 matches. Obviously, the Fremantle loss and the Gold Coast loss before the Lions. You are worried, though, aren't you?
Well, I've got concerns. I feel like you should be settled right now. And I go back to what Craig McRae did against the Gold Coast Suns, where he started Scott Pendlebury as a sub. And then he tried Mitchell and Long together, and they were pedestrian in the midfield. So that cost them the game, in my opinion. Now we move on and you start Bobby Hill as a sub and you work De Goey into the game and then you sub De Goey out and you bring Hill in. I just think they're unsettled. They're an unsettled team when you've got the Adelaide Crows, who we know what they're going to do. They're confident in what they're doing. I think Collingwood need to pick their best side, make some brutal hard calls, and and sort of settle their team back down. They've gone from 10 points clear to now fighting for a top 2, top 4 spot.
I've got no doubt there's a training load going on at the moment, but I think the contrast you've made between the seamless transition of the Adelaide club right now being in at top form. Well, another concern for you, and you flagged this as they were winning matches, is the forward line.
Yeah, it is, because Daniel McStay he came to the club to be the main man for them, and if he's not kicking goals, he doesn't supply them for anyone else either. So he's a 3-possession player the other night, 1 mark, 1 goal. That's just not good enough. I don't mind Membry because he was just a bargain pick, and he's been pretty good for them for what they've offered. And I give Myercheck a tick because he's a warrior, and 9 times out of 10 he's pretty good. So McStay's the one for me that is just not doing enough to warrant, when you look at Logan Morris kicking 6 down one end, what Jesse Hogan does for his team. So stars everywhere. Thilthorpe, what he's doing for Adelaide, and then you've got McStay, who's getting 7 possessions.
Yep. Well, I've got Max Gawn as a lock for the All-Australian starting ruck, and I won't have a conversation around any other alternative, but you want to at least raise someone who you want to mount the case for, and if he's not the starting ruck, you want to have him in the team.
Well, the
stats,
you can't just look at stats, but we are going to compare the two of them at the moment. So very similar. So you see Grundy's more of a clearance player. Max Gawn takes more marks around the ground, but everything else is very similar. But it's more the damage that Grundy is doing. So the influence he's having around, every week he's putting on a clinic in terms of hitting at Tahini, running into stoppage. The weekend was 39 disposals, so he's up against Todd Goldstein. So he's currently polled 55 of 70 votes.
And that doesn't include this game we're watching against Essendon, where he racked up a record for a ruckman of 39 disposals.
This is coaches' votes we're talking about. So by the end of today, he'll have polled 65.
You give him 10?
Of 80 votes.
Yep.
Which is outstanding, and it's the damage he's doing. So I said, it's back to when we all fell in love with Brodie Grundy at Collingwood, and this is him saying, you cost me my 40th possession after the game, Errol Gordon, and he is gone. He's more destructive in the air.
Yep.
And his big games are big, and he's been let down a little bit by his midfield as well this year.
I'd say a lot.
Yeah.
He was great against West Coast.
Yeah, but I just think across the whole year you'd say Gawn, but the last 10, 12 weeks, both of them should win their club's best and fairest. That's a tough choice for the selectors.
Look, for what it's worth, just to wrap up this conversation, I've got Luke Jackson as the backup ruckman / big man if they want to go down a backup path. But I've got Max Gawn number 1, Lotto. You're mentioning impact in big games, and there's no one doing that more than Noah Anderson at the Gold Coast Suns. He and his great mate and his great midfield mate, Matty Rowell, again dominated on the weekend. Yeah,
what a wonderful captain, and the way he's handling that is exceptional. So could he be the All-Australian captain? Have to be right up there with what he's doing. But look at those numbers. 3rd for disposals in the comp, 5th for clearances, 3rd player rating, and now equal with Nick Dacos on those coaches' votes we speak about. So hard to stop. He's just a gut runner. He's clean, doesn't make a mistake. He's composed and kicks goals.
You were concerned at one stage of the season as they started getting on that winning roll, which is now basically guaranteed them a finals berth, that they were too reliant, arguably, on him and Rowell and maybe Miller. But, Lordo, when they're so good and when they've now done it for so long, it's actually a celebration as opposed to a negative.
It is, and Humphrey comes through for a little bit. So Damien Hardwick knows what works, and they are flying the Suns.
Yep. Now, we just saw some highlights, or lowlights, I should say, when it comes to West Coast playing Melbourne through the lens of Max Gawn's performance. And Andrew McQualter, coach of West Coast, first season coach, has only the one win after the round 21 of the season. That was against St Kilda some weeks ago, and there's almost no answers for him right now.
We're not tough enough at all as a football club, as a football team at the moment. So that's got nothing to do with age. That's something that we just can't accept.
We're making the West Coast Eagles, Lordo, the subject of our boardroom agenda chat today on round 21 for Access. They're in a world of hurt. I know that's obvious, Lordo, but there's nothing obvious that's coming out in a match sense that makes you think the future is going to be better. The club now is on record as wanting to at least engage in conversation with the AFL about a priority pick, but I would argue that's not going to fix their problems. It hasn't fixed North Melbourne.
No, when you hear a coach say we're not tough enough as a football club, it seems to me it sounds like it's not just on field, it's off field, it's everything at the West Coast Eagles. So fingers crossed that they can get Pick 2 for Oscar Allen. Rowell and Anderson went to the Gold Coast Suns as pick 1 and 2. They need more than that just to support their club with just getting kids in, but that'd be a fair start. Harley Reid, pick 1, pick 2, and can they build off the back of that? But it's going to be a long, hard year again next year. Can't see them winning more than 3 or 4 games next year either.
Yep. We've learnt in the past fortnight of a fascinating storyline involving Jack Silvagni and the famous Silvagni name linked with the Carlton Football Club and the interest in him from Collingwood, their most hated rival, and other clubs also keen to see what he wants to do in 2026 and beyond. And Michael Voss, Slaughter, you can understand where he's coming from when he says this publicly about this Silvagni situation.
I can't speak to how other coaches will go about that, but what I can say is how we would go about it. And I guess in that instance, we'd probably choose not to make that sort of announcement. I don't feel like that's our role to do that. We'll always make sure that we respect the player first. It's unusual for a coach to announce something like that. And like I said, regardless of what Craig did, it's not something we would do, and we'll respect the privacy of the player and we move on.
Juicy. It's juicy because they're two former, they're premiership teammates, and they would be great mates, and you can see how disappointed Vossi is. I'm more down the Vossi line of it because of the pressure it puts on your player. So Craig McRae, we all love his honesty in his presses, but it does put pressure on Jack Silvagni right now.
Putting my media hand up here, I love the Craig McRae approach and the openness and honesty, but I get both sides, and there's a bit to play out with this, and I think it'll go all the way through to the trade period. Look, it was a round of footy where there were 80 points margins in 4 of the 9 games, and a couple of other games that were hard to watch unless you supported the 2 clubs. But what else did you take out of it?
The Dogs are September bound. I don't see them losing another home and away game, and they will play finals this year, going really well. Well, the Richmond Football Club are 5 years behind the Suns, and they were taught a lesson about how far off they are with how they were embarrassed up there on the Gold Coast. Jack Higgins, outside of Jamie Elliott, is he a little smoky for an All-Australian berth because he competes so well in a poor side week in and week out? And North Melbourne again started well, but don't know how to win.
No, they do not know how to win. On the contrast of that, the Geelong Footy Club does know how to win and knows how to win big against bad opponents, as they did against Port Adelaide. They're just taking the mickey when it comes to trying to get Jeremy Cameron to 100. I hope he gets there, Lotto. The car crash, obviously, Josh Carr inheriting this football club from Ken Hinkley. I don't know where they're at. And I think they're a whole lot worse than I thought they were. And look, they need a lot of things, the Bombers, but I think number one may be a ruckman, particularly if Sam Draper does find himself at another club next year.
Yeah, I felt sorry for Goldie. I saw it 2 weeks ago. He's limping around against Tim English, so young ruckman, and he had to do it again against Brodie Grundy. So he's done a great job, but really feel for him.
I've been trying to get past you and Fish on the Crypto.com tipping leaderboard, Lordo. I tipped GWS, which got me off to a really bad start, but I was happy with my Brisbane Lions selection, but I didn't make up any ground on you or anyone else.
Because it's so predictable, unfortunately, Damo, it's hard to make them up. And even this round, it's Collingwood Hawthorn on Thursday night, and then it's top 9 v bottom 9 for the rest of the round. So pretty hard with the tips.
Yeah. Who have you got missing the 8 after
I think
round
the Hawks,
24?
unfortunately, will miss.
I tend to agree with you right now as we talk. At the conclusion of round 21, thanks for watching Access for Crypto.com.